Welcome back to the deep dive, and I hope you're sitting down for this one.
Yeah, this is the big one.
Because today we are looking at a stack of documents that, it frankly reads like a thriller script.
It really does have that kind of tension, doesn't it? But the stakes are very, very real for the people living there.
We're looking at breaking news from Friday, February 6, 2026. The mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, he's barely passed his first 100 days.
Not even.
And he has just signed an executive order that effectively declares war on federal law enforcement.
That's not an exaggeration at all. This is a direct, confrontation, not some subtle policy shift.
So the headlines are just screaming about this. He's banned Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE from city property. But what's the scope here? When they say city property, what are we actually talking about? Just offices?
No, and that's the critical detail. This order covers everything the city touches. We're talking public schools, hospitals, homeless shelters, you name it. The order states that federal agents are barred from any of these places without a judicial warrant. So it effectively turns the entire city infrastructure into a no-go zone for them.
And the language he's using is, well, it's intense. I was reading his remarks, and he's not holding back.
No.
He called ICE a rogue agency. He even called it rotten and base. That is just incredibly hostile language for a sitting mayor.
It is. And it's triggered an immediate, almost a constitutional crisis. The Trump administration is already firing back, threatening to strip federal funding from the city.
So it's a huge game of chicken.
With billions of dollars on the line. But while the politicians are fighting, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, dropped a statistic that really changes the whole debate.
Yeah, I saw this number and I had to read it twice. What is DHS saying about who this order actually protects?
This is the core of the safety argument. DHS warns that this order is currently shielding over 7,000 undocumented immigrants in custody.
Okay, but we need to be clear. These aren't just people with traffic tickets.
Not at all. These are individuals with active detainers for serious felonies. Homicide, sexual assault, major theft, things like that.
7,000. So the city is basically telling the feds, we know these people are wanted for murder, but you can't come get them.
Precisely. The DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, she was very blunt about it. She says refusing to cooperate means the city is releasing violent criminals back into the community. She literally called it a shield for violent criminal illegal aliens.
So that's the what of the situation, but the mission for us today is the why, because you don't just wake up and decide to block the feds from catching murder suspects.
Right. There has to be a worldview behind it.
And that's what we need to unpack. We're going to look at the ideology here, the radical philosophy, and then these economic theories that critics are calling, socialist fantasies.
And it's making even his own party, the Democrats, really nervous.
Let's stick with the mechanics for a second. The order isn't just a keep-out sign, right? It changes how city employees do their jobs.
It actively polices them. The order uses very active verbs. It blocks access, it hides data, and this is the real kicker, it audits city workers.
It audits them. What does that mean?
It means if a city employee, say a clerk at a hospital, helps federal agents get a violent offender off the street, that employee gets flagged. They get investigated.
That feels completely upside down. You get in trouble for helping the police.
Exactly. It flips the whole incentive structure on its head. And to make it official, the order creates a new government job, the privacy officer.
When I hear privacy officer, I think of someone making sure my data doesn't leak online. Is that what this is?
Not even close. In this context, the privacy officer is a government position designed specifically to obstruct federal law. Their entire job is to make sure immigrant data is never shared with federal agencies.
So it's a paid bureaucrat whose only role is to keep the feds in the dark.
It is an institutional blockade, yes.
Okay, that's the machinery. But let's get to the philosophy, because Mayor Mamdani isn't just making this up. In your research, there's a lot about his intellectual roots. Who is Mahmoud Mamdani?
This is where it gets really fascinating. To understand the mayor, you really have to look at the work of Mahmoud Mamdani, specifically his book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim.
I've heard the title. What's the core argument?
The main idea is about how we understand terrorism. He argues that modern terrorism isn't a cultural issue. It's not, a problem with Islam.
Okay.
He says terrorism is a political project that was actually created by American foreign policy.
Created by America? You mean like we accidentally caused it?
He argues it was more active than that the U.S. cultivated terrorism, specifically during the Cold War. CIA actions in Afghanistan, funding groups to fight the Soviets.
And now we're dealing with the consequences.
That's the argument. So in this view, a terrorist isn't a bad guy because of his beliefs. He's a political actor responding to American imperialism.
So he rejects what he calls culture talk.
Exactly. He says we shouldn't judge this behavior through a cultural lens, but as a political response to U.S. aggression.
That's a heavy academic theory. How does that translate to a mayor in City Hall in 2026?
It's the lens he sees everything through. When Mayor Mamdani looks at an ICE agent, he doesn't see a law enforcement officer. He sees an agent of the American empire.
So when he calls ICE rotten,
He is applying that anti-imperialist framework to domestic police work. In his mind, the person who crossed the border illegally, even one who commits a crime, is the victim, and the ICE agent is the aggressor.
it shifts the moral weight completely. It suggests our laws are illegitimate because our history is illegitimate.
You've got it. He thinks he's fighting the empire, but he's doing it from the Bronx. It's a moral crusade for him.
Which leads right into the religion part. He announced this at an interfaith breakfast.
He absolutely did. He used that platform to claim that his faith, Islam, is built upon a narrative of migration, trying to give moral weight to open borders.
But wait, the Tampa Free Press source you found pointed out a massive contradiction there.
A glaring one. So the mayor lectures Americans on the need for openness, citing his faith. But that source points out that the holy city of Mecca, the center of that faith, strictly prohibits the entry of non-Muslims.
So you can't even get into the city if you're not part of the group.
Correct. There are checkpoints. It's arguably the strictest border control on the planet.
That seems like a borders for thee but not for me kind of situation.
Well, it raises a really tough question,
Yeah,
right?
I care.
Critics are asking why the West is required to have total openness, while the heart of his own faith maintains total exclusion. They argue he's using religion as a political weapon, not a consistent moral principle.
And it's not just him. Other religious leaders are getting involved.
Yes, the notes mention progressive faith leaders like Rabbi Emily Cohen, who was actually arrested during civil disobedience. You have this whole mobilization of the religious left framing this obstruction as a kind of spiritual duty.
It's a powerful story, for sure. But let's switch gears to the economy. Narratives don't pay the bills. And this is where the free ice cream analogy comes from.
Right, this comes from public discussions, Reddit threads, reacting to his platform. It's that classic socialist pitch. Policies that sound great like free ice cream, but ignore the economic consequences.
So what's the free ice cream in New York?
The two big ones are state-run grocery stores and rent freezes. So the grocery stores, the city uses tax money to open its own stores to sell food cheaper than private businesses.
Which, I mean, on the surface, who doesn't want cheaper groceries?
Of course. Short term, it sounds great, but let's play that out. You have a private mom-and-pop shop on the corner. They're paying rent, taxes, payroll. Then the government opens a store next door, funded by their taxes, that sells everything at a loss.
The private shop can't compete.
They go under. But here's the catch. The private business was paying the taxes that funded the government store. Once that tax base dies, who pays for the cheap milk?
It sounds like a death spiral.
It is. You destroy the private sector to build state dependency. And rent freezes are the same. Economists almost all agree you freeze rents, landlords stop maintaining buildings, developers stop building new ones.
And you end up with a housing crisis.
A crumbling city where nobody can find a place to live.
It feels like these policies are designed to punish success. And that connects to another idea from Mamdani's lecture notes, this settlers versus natives concept. That felt a lot darker than just bad economics.
This is so crucial to understanding the justification for it all. The settler versus native idea splits society into two permanent warring groups. The native, who the theory says is the victim of history, and the settler, the oppressor.
And in New York City, who is who?
In this framework, the native majority, framed as marginalized communities, feels entitled to what they call justice. But here, justice doesn't mean equal rights.
What does it mean then?
The source actually contrasts justice with democracy. Democracy is about equal rights for everyone. This theory argues that the native majority wants justice, which is basically redistribution, settling old scores, more than they want democracy.
So it justifies seizing assets.
Exactly. Because you aren't stealing, you're correcting a historical wrong.
That is terrifying. It's saying, we're going to take your stuff and we're the good guys for doing it because of things that happened 100 years ago.
It creates a permanent state of conflict. It replaces we the people with us versus them. And that is why even the Democratic Party is starting to crack.
That was the big twist for me. You'd think a Democratic mayor in New York City would have the full party machine behind him. But the sources say he's radioactive.
He's totally isolating himself. You have senior Democrats like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Representative Laura Gillen just openly attacking him. Gillen called him the absolute wrong choice.
What about the money, the donors?
They are panicking. The sources call it a donor revolt. People who funded Democrats for decades are now so terrified that Mamdani's socialism will destroy the city's economy, they are looking for anyone else.
Anyone else like who?
The names are wild. Andrew Cuomo, even Eric Adams. They're about backing them for independent runs.
Cuomo and Adams, I mean, these are guys with a ton of political baggage.
A ton.
Hmm.
But it just shows how desperate the establishment is.
Yeah.
They'd rather deal with the baggage they know than the economic collapse they see coming with Mamdani.
It really feels like the political center is just falling apart.
It is. And it's a lesson, really. For years, the Democratic Party nurtured these radical elements for votes, thinking they could control them. They invited the tiger into the House.
And now the tiger is hungry.
And the moderate middle class is on the menu.
Yep.
There was a Reddit comment that just summed it up perfectly. It said, "Socialism guarantees poverty for all, except those in power."
So let's bring this all together. It's a perfect storm. A mayor actively obstructing federal law, shielding violent criminals, a philosophy that blames America for terrorism, economic policies that threaten to kill private business.
And a political party that is eating itself alive trying to stop him.
Yeah. The scary part for everyone listening, though, is that New York is often the testing ground.
That's the key takeaway.
So if I'm listening in Ohio or Texas or anywhere else, why should I care what happens in New York City?
You should care because these ideologies spread. The sanctuary model, state-run businesses, the settler versus native rhetoric. These ideas don't stay contained. This is a test case. If these policies can survive in New York, they will be tried in your city next.
It really makes you wonder about the fabric of the country itself.
It does. And here's the final thought I'd leave for you to think about. We have a federal system. But if a local government decides it can just pick and choose which federal laws it follows based on its own moral grounds,
Do we still have a country?
or do we just have a collection of warring tribes sharing a landmass?
That is a chilling thought. The law doesn't apply everywhere. Does it really apply anywhere?
Exactly.
We are going to have to watch this one very closely. Keep your eyes open and keep your facts straight. Thanks for diving in with us.